The wind came mean off Devil's Bluff that evening, hissing through the sage like it had a secret to keep. My horse, Boone, tossed his head and snorted, nostrils flaring at something I couldn't see. I reined him in and let him settle, one hand resting on the butt of my old Colt. Not because I needed it, but because habit's hard to break out here. Dust devils spun down the ridgeline, coyotes yapped in the distance, and the sun, damn near blood orange, dipped low over the canyon, setting fire to the sky. I didn't expect to find salvation, or anything close to it, out on that trail. But I saw her. At first I thought it was a scarecrow, a busted fence post dressed in rags, but as we got closer, Boone slowed, hooves crunching gravel, and I saw the shape more clear, a cross, rough cut, leaning eastward like it didn't quite believe in itself. And tied to it, arms stretched, head drooped, was a girl, no older than 15, barefoot, bruised up like a peach left too long in the sun. Her dress was torn, clinging to her like it had tried to leave with the wind. A sign hung from the wood above her head, painted in something dark. "Come back when you're perfect." I felt my gut turn. Seen a lot of things in my life. War, fever, lynchings. But that felt like the ugliest thing I'd ever laid eyes on. I dismounted slow, keeping an eye on the horizon. Devil's Bluff had a way of keeping shadows, longer than most places. My boots hit the dirt, and I walked to her careful. Her lips were cracked, face slack, but when I reached out to cut the rope, her eyes fluttered open. "You're real," she mumbled. "Yeah," I said. "And you ain't dying here." She sagged into me when the rope gave way. We both dropped to our knees. She didn't cry, just sort of shook, like a cold leaf on a fence line. I wrapped her in my coat, the one my wife used to patch with blue thread. It still smelled like cedar and tobacco. "What's your name?" I asked. "Millie." "Well, Millie, name's Wesley Granger. Let's get you out of here." I hauled her up, got her on Boone's back, then climbed up behind. She leaned into my chest like she'd known me longer than a minute. That's when I saw them. Torches. 4, maybe 5. Back along the basin, riding slow and steady. A search party, but not one you'd want finding you. "Hang on," I told her. Boone knew when I meant business. I gave him a squeeze and we tore off into the brush, branches slapping at my arms, Millie's weight tight against me. We rode fast and quiet, ducking low through gulches I hadn't used since Jessie died. My wife, gone 3 winters back. Fever, took her before the thaw. Since then, the ranch was mostly bones and chores. But tonight I had company. We rode till the torches were specks and the bluff was a memory. The moon climbed high and clear, painting everything in blue and silence. Millie stirred. She turned her head just enough to say, dry and slurred, "Reckon I wasn't even halfway perfect." I let out a breath and shook my head. "Join the club, darlin'. Club's got good company." We didn't speak again till the ranch lights came into view, flickering like they always did, like maybe the past was still burning out. But I knew it wasn't the past riding with me now. It was something else. The girl didn't speak again, for a good while. Just leaned against me as Boone carried us steady down into the low country where the ground grew soft and the wind less cruel. By the time we made it to my ranch, her breathing was even. Not sleep, but something like surrender. Helped her down slow and carried her inside. The house wasn't much. 3 rooms, a warped floorboard by the stove and windows that rattled if the wind whistled just right. But it was warm. It was mine. And tonight, it was hers too. I laid her on the settee near the hearth and got a fire going. She blinked at the flames like she hadn't seen light in a week. "You hungry?" I asked. She nodded once. I set some beans to simmer and poured hot water into a chipped basin, sat by her with a rag, and cleaned the blood and dirt from her face and arms. She winced at first, then let me do it, like it was easier to trust, pain than kindness. "Got a name for what happened out there?" I asked. She didn't answer, just stared at the fire like it owed her something. When the food was ready, she ate in silence, slow and careful, Then after a long while her voice came, quiet, rough, but clear. "They said I was a devil's child," she said. "Said my mama was a Comanche witch and my daddy was a preacher who lied to the Lord." I didn't say a word. Just let her talk. They caught me talking to Luke Bresson's boy behind the church. Said I was seducing him. I wasn't, I swear I wasn't. I could feel my fists clench. Then his mama screamed I was a curse, that I didn't belong here, that I was... She hesitated, eyes filling. "Wrong." I sat back and exhaled hard. "Ain't nothing wrong with you, Millie. Nothing worth what they did." She wiped her nose with her sleeve. "Reckon that's the nicest lie anyone's told me." I stood up and tossed another log into the fire. Sparks jumped like fireflies. "It ain't a lie," I said. Outside, coyotes cried again, closer now. Boone let out a low snort from the stable. I stepped to the window, parted the curtain, and froze. Lantern light. About a half-mile out, flickering like a flame refusing to die. They were looking again. I reached for my rifle by the door. "Listen close," I told her. "You hear boots or voices, you get under that floorboard behind the stove. There's a crawl space. You don't move till I say so." She nodded, eyes wide now. We waited. I blew out the lantern, let the fire fade to coals. Minutes passed. Then hooves on gravel. 4 riders, they didn't dismount. Just sat there, shadows on saddles. The one up front lifted his lantern and called, "Out, evening, Granger." I knew the voice. "Reverend Coiner, hell on a pulpit and worse on horseback. What do you want?" I called through the door. "We're searching for a runaway, mixed blood girl, dangerous. You seen anyone?" I opened the door just a crack, rifle in hand. "Only thing I've seen is a busted barn door and a long week of chores," I said. "Ain't nobody here but me and the Lord." He shifted in his saddle. "Mind if we take a look?" "I do." Long silence. Then he chuckled, low and slow. "You always were a stubborn son of a bitch, Granger. And you always were a coward dressed up as holy," I said flatly. He leaned forward, eyes dark under his brim. "You keep hiding sin, Wesley. You'll burn with it." Then he turned and rode off, his boys following like dogs without teeth. I stood in the dark long after they were gone, rifle still gripped tight. When I turned back, Millie was peeking out from the crawl space, dirt on her cheeks, eyes trembling. "You, all right?" I asked. She nodded. That night I made her a bed of quilts by the hearth. She lay still for a while, watching the shadows dance. Then came the question I figured was coming. "Why'd you help me?" I didn't answer right away. Took my time lighting my pipe. Then I looked at her and said, "Because my wife died screaming my name and no one came for her. Figured I could change that story for someone." She didn't cry. She just pulled the quilt tighter and turned toward the fire. Before sleep took her, she whispered, "Thank you." And I whispered back, "You're safe now." But that don't mean this is over, because in the West safety was temporary, and secrets, they rode faster than bullets. I woke to the smell of smoke, not wood stove smoke, not the kind that hums low and warm under the bones of the house. No, this was sharp, choking, and hungry. Burning hay, burning timber. Boone let out a shrill cry from the stable. I threw the covers off, boots on before my feet hit the floor. Through the window, the barn was ablaze, flames licking at the night sky, casting twisted shadows across the ranch yard. Someone had come back. And this time, they brought fire. "Millie," I barked, running to the hearth where she'd been sleeping. She was already up, pale and shaking. "Root cellar." "Now," I said, grabbing the rifle from the wall. We slipped out the back as hoofbeats closed in from the front. 5, maybe 6 riders, masks over their faces, torches, rifles, hate. I pulled the cellar door open and shoved Millie inside. "Stay low, don't make a sound, no matter what you hear." She grabbed my hand. "You'll come back?" I gave a nod. "Count on it." But before I could close the hatch, a bootstep crunched behind me. I spun. A masked man lunged, yanking Millie halfway out of the cellar by the wrist. She kicked and screamed. "Let her go!" I shouted, leveling the rifle. Too late. The man raised his revolver, and then, crack. A single shot rang out. The man dropped like a sack of grain, a hole clean through his temple. Millie gasped. I turned, stunned. There, atop a paint horse, sat a woman in buckskins and a wide-brimmed hat. Her face was stern, shadowed, but striking. Hair tied back. Sharp's rifle in her hands. She guided the horse closer and said, cool as creek water, "Thought, you might need a hand." I blinked. "You the cavalry?" She didn't smile. "Name's Josie Vale. Saw what they did to the girl on that cross. Been following their tracks since noon." Another shot cracked through the yard. Closer now. No time for talk. We ducked behind the well wall as bullets ripped through the air. Sparks danced across the dirt. The barn collapsed in on itself with a groan, the sky gone orange and thick. Tossed Josie my second rifle. "You know how to use that?" She looked at me like I'd asked if she knew how to breathe. "I ain't dead yet, am I?" Millie stayed down in the cellar. Josie and I flanked wide, using fence posts and the water trough for cover. One of the riders fired wild, shouting something about cleansing the land. Josie took him down with a clean shot to the chest. Another tried to circle around the coop. I nailed his thigh and watched him crawl like a kicked dog. The last two made a break for the woods, spooked by the gunfire. Josie took a shot but missed. Not by much. They vanished into the trees, and just like that, it was quiet again. The kind of quiet that hums in your ears, makes your heart beat, sound like thunder. Josie leaned against the well post, breathing hard. "You hit?" I asked. She nodded toward her arm. Blood soaked through the sleeve of her buckskin jacket. "Through and through," she said. "Ain't fatal, just obnoxious." I helped her inside. Millie climbed out and ran to us, eyes wide, lip trembling. I nodded to let her know it was over, for now. I boiled water while Josie peeled back the bloody fabric. The bullet had torn, clean through her bicep, ugly but not deep. "You ever stitch before?" she asked. "Stitched a few saddlebags, couple cows." "Well, this cow bites," she muttered. I cleaned the wound while she gritted her teeth. Millie stood nearby, holding the thread and biting her nail. "You didn't have to help us," I said finally. Josie winced, but didn't look away. "Didn't sit right what they did to that girl. Made my stomach turn." We sat quiet after that. Fire hissed low in the stove. The barn was gone. Nothing but embers now. Boone had made it out, thank God. The rest, ash and ruin. "I don't trust people," I said. "Lost too much." Josie nodded, dabbing at her shoulder. "Same. That why we survive?" "Maybe. Or maybe it's why we're so damn tired." She looked up, eyes soft now. "There's nothing perfect left in this land, Wesley. But there's still good." I glanced toward the mantel. My wife's old coat still hung there, faded brown, stitching coming loose at the collar. I took it down and wrapped it around Millie's shoulders. It swallowed her up, but she hugged it like it mattered, because it did. The girl looked at Josie, then at me, and said nothing, but I saw it in her eyes. For the first time in a long time, she felt safe. That night, Josie stayed in the chair by the hearth. Millie curled up on the cot, the coat pulled to her chin. I sat near the window, rifle in my lap, eyes fixed on the dark. Let 'em come again, I thought. I'm ready. By first light, the road to my ranch looked like a funeral procession. Dust, kicked up behind 6 riders, maybe more. The one leading the pack sat stiff in the saddle, black coat buttoned tight despite the heat. Reverend Coiner, Bible in one hand, rifle in the other, righteous fury smeared across his face like war paint. The others behind him, townsfolk, men I'd traded with, nodded to in church. Now they came to drag a child into hell with them. I stepped out onto the porch, rifle in my hand, not raised, not hidden. Just there. Josie stood behind me, her arm still bandaged. Millie, wrapped in my wife's coat, stood just a step behind. No one said a word. Coiner's horse stomped to a stop 10 paces out. "You got something that don't belong to you, Granger," he called out. "I reckon you're wrong," I said. "She don't belong to nobody," he sneered. "That girl is filth, a danger to our sons. You think you're saving her soul? You're damning your own." I stepped down off the porch, boots crunching dry dirt. "I buried my wife on this land," I said, "and I'll bury a few more if I have to." The riders stirred. Guns weren't drawn yet, but fingers tensed. Then, from behind the crowd, another horse came trotting in. Slow, deliberate. The sheriff. Hat low, eyes narrowed, hand resting on his belt. He pulled up beside Coiner. "Pastor," he said, "you didn't tell these men the whole story, did you?" Coiner's eyes flared. "What are you speaking on, Sheriff?" The sheriff turned to the crowd. "Tell 'em whose boy knocked on Josiah Bresson's door crying about his conscience. Tell 'em whose son admitted to touching that girl first." The crowd shifted. Whispers, glances. Coiner's mouth twitched. "You listen to me," he hissed, turning in the saddle. "My boy was seduced by liar." Millie's voice, sharp as a whip crack. She stepped forward, shaking, but proud. "He said he loved me. Then he called me a mistake when his daddy found out." Coiner's face flushed purple. "You little—" He lunged, reaching for her with fury burning in his eyes. Crack! Josie's rifle went off, clean and fast. Coiner screamed and dropped his gun. Blood spurted from his hand, a finger blown. Clean off. I raised my rifle and fired a single round into the sky. The sound echoed like thunder over the hills. "That's enough blood," I said. Everything went still. The sheriff dismounted and cuffed Coiner with his good hand. "You're done, preacher. This town's had enough of your crusades." The crowd didn't argue. A few turned their horses and rode off without a word. Others stayed watching, maybe wondering if this was what justice looked like. Coiner's moans faded into the distance as the sheriff led him away. Josie lowered her rifle and exhaled hard. I walked over to Millie. She looked up at me, eyes red, but strong. "You all right?" I asked. She nodded. That afternoon I filled out the land papers, took them into town the next day. Had the deed changed to include 3 names. Wesley Granger, Josephine Vale, Millie Callahan. Family wasn't blood, it was choice. We came back to a quiet ranch. No more threats, no more torches, just scorched earth where the barn once stood and the smell of ash riding on the breeze. But life went on. A week later, Millie was laughing. She ran through the tall wildflowers by the back pasture, chasing a dog Josie had picked up from the trading post. Her hair whipped in the wind, feet bare, and her old scars didn't seem to weigh her down anymore. Josie and I worked the broken fence near the south edge. We didn't talk much, just passed nails and leaned on the post like old ghosts. The sun was setting, casting the whole ranch in gold. I looked over at her. "You think this holds?" I asked. She smiled, that half smirk I was getting used to. "Only one way to find out." We stood there a while longer, side by side, and I thought about the land, about fire and cruelty and silence, and how somehow 3 people who didn't belong anywhere had made something worth keeping. Maybe none of us were perfect, but out here, among the dust and ghosts, we were enough. Out here, it's not about being perfect. It's about standing your ground, protecting what's good, and choosing who you call family. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more tales from the frontier, and let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from, and what would you have done? Until next time, ride safe and stay true.